Today's project, Voigtlander Bessamatic cameras. I've got the mortal remains of 4 cameras here. Nothing works properly. Terrible things have happened. There may be broken parts. I want to see if I can get at least 2 good cameras out of this lot. Otherwise it'll be filling up my cupboards forever. Okay, I'll make a start. Okay, let's start with this one. This is the crusty but otherwise relatively complete camera, and someone's already been into this one, I expect, judging by the state of it. It's ugly. It's already missing a couple of pieces here. Let's bring in one that's complete and you can see what's missing. So, not much. Here we've got a single screw in the middle of this cover plate, and here we've got a single screw on the rewind knob. Remove those screws, lift off the rewind knob, lift off that plate, put them to one side. Then you get back to this crusty thing. I've loosened up this stuff so I know it's going to come apart. You've got a slotted fastener here. I used a mutilated pair of circlip pliers to turn that. It's loose now anyway, so I can spin that off. Now none of these fasteners are left-hand thread or anything unusual like that. That advanced lever will lift off. At this end, this boss in the middle, this collar, is screwed in, and you have to hold the knob while you unscrew it. Now I've already got this loose. There's a special tool for getting this loose, and it would have been a tube-shaped thing with a couple of small projections on the bottom, which would engage with those notches and allow you to get this off. I don't have such a tool here, and this was well stuck on because it's a bit of a mess. What I did do was I put some duct tape around that, 2 or 3 layers of duct tape, and then I used a pair of slip jaw pliers with a nice round opening, nice and small, and used that to grip it, and it broke free straight away. Now back to this thing. Let's get this knob off. The top piece here with the scale on it, this button is a separate piece. You can see it's on that little brass piece. Here's the piece with our numbers on it, and here's the setting knob from down below it. And then this piece here actually couples to the meter. See if that'll come off. Yep, that's okay. So the camera, we can lift the top off now. There are 4 screws holding the top cover down. Now that one's rusty. That one's not much better. Those screws are all identical. Now the top cover should lift straight off. You might need to wriggle it a bit, but it should come straight up. In this case, the prism has come up with the top cover. Now the prism on these cameras is held in place with some foam rubber over the top of the prism, and then the top housing holds that down in place. So that is pretty precarious in there. That'll fall out whenever it feels like. I've got to be careful about that. And here's our camera. Let's have a look at this. Well, it's very dusty looking. I think that's corrosion. There's all the corrosion products here, that white stuff. That looks like the corrosion you get on aluminium. It probably means this has been, possibly it's even hit salt water. It's certainly not good. The shutter release button can be lifted off that shaft. It's doing nothing useful. It's only going to fall off if we try to do anything with it. Now the film advance is stuck. That's not going anywhere. The shutter, I think it's either failing to cock completely or it's failing to release. I can't really tell from looking at that. I'm going to lift the meter off next. The meter here is held in with 3 screws, I think. I really don't like the look of this camera. I don't like its chances of coming back to life, but it might serve as a part source for something I need for the 2 very incomplete cameras. Is that meter going to lift off? Yes, it is. That's our meter assembly complete. This one's lively, you can tell, because the meter needle, as I block or allow light to that cell, you can see the needle swings across. I've got to be careful with that. You don't want to lose our meter. Back to this mess. I mean, look at the state of that. There's an awful lot of rust. I think this is a total loss. Alright, we'll keep digging into this. I want to remove the front from the camera. To get in here I need to lift off the leatherettes. Now I think natural decay processes have done half the job for me. Yeah, leatherette's not very happy looking. That'll probably come right. If this was cleaned in warm water with a little bit of detergent to clean all the dirt and rubbish off it, that would probably come right. You can press leatherettes like that, it's because it's plastic embossed, plastic impregnated material. If you use a cool iron, you can actually flatten out things like that and reuse them. You may be able to do that. This side, the same deal again. I'm just seeing if I can slide my scalpel blade underneath that leatherette. The adhesive's better on this side than it is on the other side of the camera. So with corrosion like this, was the camera a swimmer? Did it actually fall in the water? Or was it just handled with wet hands? Or was it just stored somewhere damp? Out in some cold, damp shed? You can't always tell. Sometimes leatherettes will peel up. With relatively modern cameras, that was always a good tactic, because the leatherette would still be fairly robust and fairly pliable. But when everything's old and tired, you know, that can be a bit fraught. You could just tear something in half without any trouble at all. That's not really loosening up much. I'm going to put a drop of naphtha under that, see if it'll soften the adhesive, such as is left, and try and get it off in one piece. Well, that seems to have done the trick. Going to be very careful in this corner. There's almost no leatherette around that big flash connection boss there. And it will come to bits. I don't think that's going to come off in one piece. No, this piece came adrift. That doesn't surprise me much, and that's not the end of the world. That would glue back on, it would be invisible. Okay, so what do we got here? Well, on the front of the camera we see two rusty strips there, here and here. Now they are very thin metal, they're steel, and they are there to stop the screw heads, or the hollow that the screw heads are fitted into, telegraphing through onto the leatherette. You can peel that off. You saw I used a little bit of naphtha on my scalpel there to get underneath that steel plate. It's glued down. We'll do that again. Just put a few drops of naphtha on the scalpel and slide it in underneath. Now the naphtha's doing two jobs. It's softening the adhesive, and it's also acting as a lubricant as you slide the blade under. Alright, I think the front can come off without lifting the base off first. Have a look. It's a while since I've done one of these. So we've got 6 screws. Hold these trim plates in place. And these may not come adrift easily because they may be glued in place from the glue that someone had used to put those plates in place. That one does not want to move. I'll just put a bit of naphtha on there, leave that for a second. Let's try its mates on the other side. Gather up those loose screws. Let's try this one again. I'm going to use a bigger screwdriver. Make sure it's well into the slot. Yeah, it's coming loose, and it was glue. I could tell by the way that released, the stickiness of it. It was the glue holding that screw in place. Now these two plates should come off. Well, I have to say they're reluctant. I don't think they're trapped under this base plate. They could be. I'll get my screwdriver in here and try moving this out. That's moved out a bit. That's up. Okay, here's one side. This is our flash contact here. I'm just going to get the soldering iron and melt that solder and remove that. On this side it should be the same deal. This plate is probably, it's not glued in place. I don't know why it's so reluctant to lift out. I'll just put my scalpel blade under the edge of it, and I'll get a screwdriver in here as I did on the other side. Lift that away, okay. And of course there's no flash contact on that side, so there's nothing to disturb us. Back when I've got that wire loose. Alright, well as you can see I've got that wire unsoldered. Let's have a look at what we've got left now. I think the base plate's going to have to come off to get any deeper into this. I think it's going to hold this front section in place. So, what do we need? We have to peel the leatherette off there, and there'll be screws underneath. Let's see if the leatherette will come off without fighting. It's pretty rough, this thing, but that's corrosion under there. I'm just putting a bit of naphtha underneath that leatherette in the hope that it'll soften the adhesive. Some of this adhesive is very rubbery. Some of it is probably quite brittle, where it's broken away with from the corrosion. It's always best practice to get the leatherettes off in one piece, even if you don't really think you're going to be able to reuse them. You may end up reusing them, and if not on this camera, they may be reused on another camera. This base plate, the chrome is, Voigtlander used steel for a lot of their panels, top covers and things like that. A lot of the other manufacturers used brass. Now, steel would have been cheaper to use, but it's probably not as easy to work as brass. But for one reason or another, Voigtlander used steel, and so you end up with rust problems. Whereas on other cameras, you would not. You might end up with corrosion, but it'll be the sort of corrosion where you get pitting in the chrome. Not the metal, underlying metal turning to rubbish like this. Well, that was probably a bit generous. Now there were changes made during the production of the Bessamatic cameras, minor changes, but I know that these two stubs down here, these little feet that allow the camera to sit level on a tabletop, they changed during production. I think it was the earlier ones, they were very thin, and they made them more robust looking later on. I think that's, yeah, that leatherette split right there, and here. Don't just give up or decide that that's the end of it and start tearing it off if you get a small tear in your leatherette, because to be quite honest, that once leatherettes are glued back down firmly, it's very difficult to see a small tear in the leatherette, and you can put the extra work in and make it pretty much invisible. From the amount of adhesive that's on these leatherettes, this camera has been worked on before. Okay, so there's our leatherette. That would certainly be reusable. Let's get this base plate off. I can see 4 screws. I'm going to put a bit of naphtha on those now because this has been fairly well flooded with adhesive when someone's put the leatherettes in place, and as a result those screw heads are likely to be very reluctant to come loose. Now they were like the chrome screws that held those front trims on, or the steel screws that held the front trims on, but these ones are longer. Will that come off? What's thinking about it? It's loose at one end, it's not loose at this end. Oh, there we go. Okay, whoops. Now the spring has just sprung on the film advance lever there. I should have been a bit more careful about that. That's alright, we haven't damaged anything. Okay, there's our base plate off. Let's have a look at this spring. I don't know whether these are fixed or not in the middle. They may be. If it's fixed, we'll leave it in place. No, it's not. It's only hooked in. So I'm taking that spring off out and putting it out of the way. Let's pop our advance lever back on here. It certainly doesn't want to move at all. Alright, I think this camera is well and truly jammed up. So this lever here, we want that off. That stops you being able to move the film advance depending on the state of the shutter. There's a single screw in the middle, acts as a pivot. There's a spring on the end of that arm, and the other end of the spring is over a screw head here. Now that screw holds something else in place. It holds a rod in place. Hang on, that's a spring coming loose from the top there. That would have been under the prism. See if I can get that screw loose. Yeah, it's going to come loose. It wasn't looking promising. So that's our screw post and the spring. And the pivot for that one, that was a shoulder screw. So that's a special one, don't mix it with the others. Okay, I think I can just about get that front off now. There are 6 screws hold this shutter casting to the body casting. That is very reluctant to move. That one's okay. These are different shape to the other screws. They're not flathead screws, they're just quite thin screw heads. And I'm fairly sure there was one more down here underneath this plastic insulating piece. That's there to stop the flash wire from shorting to the body. So back to this last screw, or the first screw that I tried to get loose before, and it would not. Is that screw slot damaged? Has it got something in it? It's coming loose now. I think there was a bit of debris in the bottom of the screw slot was stopping the screwdriver from entering properly. Okay. Will this come off? Okay, now the shutter completed its action at that stage. It just flew back and the blade's closed. Alright, now this arm here, be careful of this arm. That came out through this slot and that was held in place with that screw that had the spring attached to it. So there's the camera body. Let's have a look at that first. See if we can figure out why the film advance wouldn't move. It's not immediately obvious, but there is a lot of sand and grit down in here, and it may well be that that's jamming things up and stopping this rack from moving freely. Well, the rack, of course, is at the other end of this shaft, and that would be enough to cause the problem. Let's have a look at the shutter assembly. Now, there's a fair bit of corrosion visible here on that business, and here, this rod that this mechanism works on is also looking fairly corroded. Let's see if I can cock this. Now that's in the cocked position. Let's set this to, say, a 30th. See if it releases. Well, the shutter closed. I don't think it released to do the exposure, so the action hasn't completed. Which might be down to this business here, that delay, or it could just be down to the corrosion that's obviously present. And there's just so much grit and rubbish in here, it's difficult to tell. Alright, well that's that camera partially disassembled. It's obviously not exactly a winner. Look at all the rubbish that's on the bench. This cog that you see here, that couples with our meter. So as you move the shutter or aperture settings, well, you change your shutter settings down here, your aperture settings are actually changed by the knob on the top of the meter. And all this is very stiff. Alright, so much for that camera. It's not looking wonderful at all. The shutter, I can see a little bit of corrosion on those blades. I don't think the shutter's a dead loss. It's certainly not opening and closing to make the exposure. The best we can get this thing to do is to open when it's fully cocked, which would allow you viewing, and then the shutter blades will close down, and at that point the mirror and capping plate and so forth would have moved, and then the action would have completed. But this is not happening. It's not looking good at all. So we certainly got problems with the shutter, there's no question about that. And the film advance mechanism, I think we've got problems here too. it just doesn't want to move. See, that shouldn't stop it from moving. I don't know where my problems lie, but as I say, there's a lot of grit and rubbish in there. Any of that would be enough to do the job. Well, I'm going to blow out the rubbish on here and investigate a bit more, but I think this one's a dead loss. I think we'll move to working on a camera that's complete and does work after a fashion and just needs to be serviced.